Chapter 1. The 100 million verdict. Here is 100 million. Divorce me. Victoria Sterling, a breathtakingly beautiful billionaire CEO, pushed the divorce agreement across the expensive pearwood desk. Her face was a mask of absolute ice. Julian Vance stared at the papers, completely stunned. But he wasn't crying because of the divorce. He was stunned because he had just transmigrated into a web novel. He had become the spineless, pathetic second male lead of a contract marriage story. According to the original plot, Julian was supposed to weep, beg, and cling to Victoria's legs. He had tolerated 3 years of a cold, sexless marriage because Victoria was hopelessly in love with her childhood sweetheart, Dominic Cross. But Julian knew how the book ended. When Dominic returned, the two would join forces to crush Julian until he died miserably on the streets. To hell with that, Julian thought. He picked up the fountain pen and signed his name in 2 swift, sharp strokes. When will the money arrive? Victoria froze. The humiliation she had prepared stuck in her throat. She stared at him, looking for a shred of pain or reluctance. She found none. Tomorrow, she spat out through clenched teeth. Great. I'll move out today. Julian stood up, stretched his built 6 feet 2 inches frame, and walked out without looking back. Behind him, he heard a sharp scratch as Victoria's pen gouged her desk in frustration. It felt incredible. Chapter 2. Setting up the lazy life. The next morning, Julian's phone buzzed with a bank notification. $100 million had been deposited. Julian immediately called Marcus, an assistant planted by the Sterling family, to spy on him. In the original novel, Dominic would eventually frame Marcus, and Julian would ruin himself trying to bail him out, making Marcus his only truly loyal subordinate. Julian decided to recruit him early. Marcus, take $50 million and buy the abandoned chemical factory land in the southern suburbs. I don't care what price they ask, just buy it. But Master Vance, Marcus stammered, that place is remote and polluted. It's worthless. Marcus didn't know that in exactly 2 weeks, the government would announce a massive, high-tech industrial park on that exact plot, skyrocketing its value 100-fold. Julian lazily brushed him off. Just do it. Use the rest of the money to buy me a standalone villa in White Cloud Manor with a heated pool and a massive kitchen. Hire me 8 master chefs, 1 for each of the major regional Chinese cuisines. Hire a traditional brewer for rice wine, and buy me a golden retriever. By noon, Marcus called back, utterly dazed. He had bought the land for $48 million. The sellers treated them like suckers and arranged everything else. Julian, thoroughly satisfied, offered Marcus a new job managing his private investments. Your annual salary starts at $2 million. Marcus's voice cracked. He had been working himself to death for Victoria for barely $800,000 a year. Master Vance, I will go through fire and water for you. Marcus gasped. For the first time, someone had given him absolute trust and respect. Julian moved into his minimalist luxury villa. He spent his day eating melt-in-your-mouth dompa pork and soul-punching mapo tofu, swimming in his heated pool, and admiring his sculpted 8-pack abs in the mirror. Suddenly, Victoria called. You didn't go to the Vance family estate today to keep up appearances, she said coldly. I forgot, Julian said honestly. Victoria paused, shocked that the man who used to memorize her entire schedule had forgotten her. Grandfather is furious. Also, I heard you bought that useless Southern District land. Have you lost your mind? Don't waste your divorce money trying to prove yourself. Julian smiled. Miss Sterling, how I spend my money has nothing to do with you. And don't call me Julian. Call me your ex-husband. He hung up. Chapter 3. An Angel and a Snob. That weekend, Julian visited his grandfather, Elder Vance. The moment he walked in, a teacup shattered past his ear. You ungrateful bastard, the old man roared. Who gave you the guts to divorce Victoria? Julian's smug younger brother, Pierce, smirked, thrilled to see Julian ruined. But Julian remained entirely calm. Grandpa, I'm the one who wanted the divorce. Victoria loves another man. Instead of making 3 people miserable, I walked away. Your grandson isn't that pathetic. The old man stared deeply into Julian's steady, confident eyes. He let out a deep sigh and lowered his cane. Forget it. Children will live their own lives. Pierce's smug grin instantly turned to stone. Seeking some refined culture to nourish his soul, Julian headed to a private art gallery for a cello recital. Sitting next to him was a girl dressed in a simple white dress, her skin as pale as porcelain. She was deeply enjoying the music, her fingers tapping the rhythm. When the music ended, she turned to him with gentle, deer-like eyes. "You like Rachmaninoff too?" she asked softly. "His music feels full of life," Julian replied. "No matter how hopeless things get, there's always light at the end." Her eyes lit up. "A soulmate. I'm Serafina Thorne." They spoke effortlessly for hours, moving from classical poetry to Van Gogh. Serafina was brilliant, kind, and radiating warmth. When it was time to leave, Julian offered to drive her home in his ordinary Porsche. But as they stepped outside, a blazing red Ferrari cut them off. The window rolled down to reveal Chloe, a textbook snob and Victoria's best friend. "Serafina, why are you with this sketchy loser?" Chloe shrieked, making sure the entire street could hear. "He's Julian, Victoria's pathetic ex-husband who clung to her like a desperate dog. Now that he got a little divorce money, he's trying to scam his way into your rich family." Julian crossed his arms, highly amused. "Finished?" he asked calmly. "If you're done, move. You're blocking my car." Chloe's face turned the color of liver paste. Serafina stepped firmly in front of Julian. "Chloe, show some respect. Julian isn't like that. I trust my own judgment." Serafina hopped into Julian's passenger seat and waved goodbye to a dumbfounded Chloe. In the car, Serafina shyly handed Julian a small, embroidered protection charm smelling of fresh gardenias. Watching her walk into the massive Thorne family estate, Julian realized that being genuinely cared for felt incredible. Chapter 4. Public Opinion and the Ultimate Dog Bowl. The peace didn't last. That evening, Marcus called in a total panic. "Young master, Dominic Cross leaked our land purchase online. Everyone is claiming we used insider trading and colluded with the government. The Sterling Group stock just dropped 5% because of the association." Julian poured himself a smooth cup of freshly brewed rice wine. "Let them investigate. The money is from a legal divorce settlement, and we paid above market value. There is nothing to uncover. Instead of panicking, go contact the city's largest construction companies." Online, a financial blogger named Mr. Cross, the Justice Warrior, obviously Dominic, was rallying millions of angry internet trolls to destroy Julian. Victoria called Julian, screaming in exhaustion about her stock prices. Julian just yawned. "We are divorced, President Sterling. Whether your stock rises or falls has nothing to do with me." The next day, the government's official investigation concluded. They released a public statement declaring Julian's transaction 100% legal and compliant. Overnight, internet public opinion completely flipped. The trolls began pitying Julian, calling him a handsome, law-abiding victim of his vicious ex-wife. Dominic quickly deleted his fake account and went into hiding. Victoria called back, her voice low and hoarse. "I'm sorry. I was too impulsive. How did you know about that land?" "Pure luck," Julian lied smoothly. "Can we meet?" she asked, her tone uncharacteristically pleading. "No time. I'm going to an auction." Julian hung up. The charity auction was packed with the city's elite. Julian sat lazily in the corner as Victoria entered, arm in arm with Dominic Cross. The crowd whispered about how perfect they looked, mocking Julian as a mere gigolo. Dominic walked straight up to Julian, flashing a victor's smile, and extended his hand. "Mr. Vance, I've heard a lot about you." Julian didn't move an inch. "Sorry, I don't have a habit of shaking hands with people who have already lost." The room froze. Dominic's eye twitched. What happened online was a misunderstanding. Dominic forced a smile. "My friend acted too impulsively. I reprimanded him." "Then apologize to me on your friend's behalf," Julian said coldly. "Preferably on your knees." Victoria stepped forward, frowning. "Julian, enough is enough." Julian chuckled. "Oh, feeling protective now? Standing next to your true love, you suddenly don't recognize your ex-husband?" Victoria's face drained of all color. The auction began. To save face, Dominic lavishly dropped 5 million on a painting, tossing a smug glance at Julian. Julian remained completely motionless until the final item was announced. A one-of-a-kind Celadon brewing set handcrafted by the legendary Master Lou. The room erupted. This brewing set was the ultimate ticket to meeting old Master Montgomery, the richest, most reclusive tycoon in the city, whose only weakness was fine liquor. Dominic desperately needed Montgomery's approval for a multi-billion-dollar project. Bidding soared. Dominic gritted his teeth and shouted, 10 million. Confident he had won, a victorious smile spread across his face. Julian lazily raised his paddle. 20 million. Dead silence. Mr. Vance, what is the meaning of this? Dominic hissed, turning green. No special meaning, Julian shrugged. It just looks nice. I think it'll make a pretty stylish dog bowl for my golden retriever. The entire venue exploded into roaring laughter. Dominic looked like his lungs were going to burst from rage. Julian walked on stage, swiped his card, and whispered in Dominic's ear. Problems that can be solved with money aren't real problems. Unfortunately for you, you have plenty of problems and very little money. Chapter 5. Schrodinger's Cat. The next morning, Julian's golden retriever, Richie, was happily licking the 20 million antique in the courtyard. Suddenly, the chief steward of the Montgomery family, Uncle Montgomery, arrived at the villa. He looked at the dog bowl, a faint smile in his eyes. If Master Lou found out you were using his masterpiece as a dog bowl, he'd leap out of his grave. Julian poured Uncle Montgomery a cup of his chef's custom rice wine. The steward took a sip, his eyes lighting up. Excellent. Let's not waste words, Julian. Old Master Montgomery is very fond of this brewing set. Name your price. Julian shook his head. I'm not selling it. I'm gifting it to the old master for free. Uncle Montgomery froze. For free. I only have one condition, Julian said steadily. For the West City project that the Cross Group is bidding on, I hope the Montgomery family treats every bidder fairly. Julian knew old Master Montgomery despised obvious, profit-driven bootlickers. By acting detached and asking only for a fair competition, Julian proved he was an elegant gentleman who treated money like dirt. Deeply impressed, Uncle Montgomery nodded. I understand. The old master will gladly accept. A few days later, Julian was getting ready to pick up some homemade cookies from Serafina when he found Victoria standing at his door. She looked exhausted, her pride completely shattered. Dominic's project was rejected by the Montgomery Group, she said, her voice trembling. They said his proposal lacked substance. You did this, didn't you? Julian, who exactly are you? You were never like this before. You used to bring me breakfast, memorize my preferences, and panic over my casual comments. Why have you changed? Julian looked at her with pity. Victoria, are you seriously asking why I stopped being your slave? For 3 years, I was emotionally neglected, ignored, and looked down upon. The moment your true love came back, you threw me away with a check. What did you expect? For me to beg? Victoria's eyes filled with tears. She desperately grabbed the corner of his shirt. Then what about us? Do we still have a chance? Julian gently peeled her fingers away, one by one. Victoria, do you know about garbage sorting? Expired relationships belong in the hazardous waste bin. Did you ever love me? Even just a little, she sobbed. Have you ever heard of Schrodinger's cat? Julian asked calmly. Before you opened the box, the cat was both alive and dead. My feelings for you were the same. But the moment you pushed that divorce agreement in front of me, you opened the box. The cat died. He shut the door firmly. Victoria collapsed onto the cold floor outside his villa, crying bitterly as she finally realized she had personally killed the only man who had ever loved her unconditionally. Chapter 6. True Happiness. Julian drove out into the autumn sunshine, feeling entirely free. He met Serafina outside her house, and she eagerly handed him a box of adorable bear-shaped cookies. They tasted perfect. In return, Julian handed her a luxury food container filled with crab roe meatballs, her absolute favorite dish, which he had subtly remembered from a past conversation. Tears of pure emotion shimmered in Serafina's eyes. Suddenly, her haughty ragdoll cat, Lucky, walked out. Simultaneously, Richie the golden retriever accidentally hit the car window switch, rolled out like a missile, and gave the noble cat a massive, enthusiastic lick across the face. Chaos descended. The cat hissed, its fur exploding outward, while Richie circled around it like a love-struck simp. Julian and Serafina crouched by the roadside, laughing helplessly at their pets under the warm golden sunset. Suddenly, a black Bentley stopped. Dominic Cross stepped out, his eyes venomous. "Serafina, stay away from him. He's an ignorant, gold-digging loser who only knows how to waste time." Serafina snapped back fiercely, shielding Julian. "He is not. He understands music, poetry, and history. He is gentle, kind, and remembers what I like to eat." Julian stepped forward, pulling Serafina protectively into his arms. She blushed furiously but leaned into his chest. Julian looked coldly at Dominic. "First, I'm not ignorant. I just have more money than I could spend in several lifetimes. Second, I'm experiencing life, not wasting it. And third," Julian's eyes turned sharp as a blade, "she is my woman. If you ever harass her again, I guarantee that within 3 days, there won't be a cross group left in this city." Dominic fled in absolute panic. Serafina's mother, who had been watching the whole romantic scene from the window, opened the door. "Since you're already hugging like that, Julian, you need to take responsibility. Come inside and make it official over dinner." Dinner with the Thorne family was a nerve-wracking trial, but Serafina's mother piled his plate high with food, treating him better than his own parents ever had. After dinner, Serafina's stern father challenged Julian to a game of chess. Julian defended flawlessly, resulting in a dead draw. The father set down his tea, showing genuine approval. "Serafina is pure-hearted. If I entrust her to you, don't make her cry." "I will spoil her rotten, sir," Julian promised sincerely. As Julian left the house at 10 p.m., Serafina walked him out under the moonlight. Julian tapped her nose. "Miss Serafina, would you be willing to give me the chance to treat you well for the rest of my life?" Serafina nodded shyly, and Julian leaned down, kissing her lips. They tasted sweet like butter and cookies. Right then, his phone roared. It was Marcus, screaming at the top of his lungs. "Master Vance." Everything exploded. "The nearly bankrupt gaming company you casually told me to buy just released a game called King's Honor. It became an overnight national sensation. Our investment just increased tenfold. We made tens of billions of dollars." Julian sighed, reluctantly pulling away from Serafina. "Marcus, is tens of billions really that much? Don't bother me with minor issues like this in the future. I'm busy dating." He hung up, leaving Marcus's soul drifting away in the wind. The news spread like wildfire. Headlines like hashtag how to become a billionaire by lying flat and hashtag Julian's mysterious girlfriend completely dominated the internet. Everyone hailed them as the ultimate power couple. In her empty corporate office, Victoria stared at a photo of Julian and Serafina kissing under the streetlights, clutching a pair of wedding anniversary cufflinks she had forgotten to give Julian years ago, weeping in silent agony. 6 months later, Dominic Cross was sent to prison for commercial fraud as his capital collapsed. The Sterling Group, crippled by poor choices, shrank to a fraction of its wealth. Julian, now an untouchable multi-billionaire titan, ignored it all. He was walking along the beach with Serafina, watching Richie and Lucky play peacefully in the sand. Suddenly, Serafina stopped and looked into his eyes. "Julian, let's get married. I want to wake up every morning and have the first person I see be you." Julian froze, chuckling softly. He slowly knelt on one knee and pulled out a small velvet box containing a ring he had been preparing for months. "Serafina, even though you stole my proposal line, I still want to ask you properly. Will you marry a professional life lover like me?" Tears rolled down her cheeks as she nodded repeatedly. "Yes, I will." Julian pulled her tightly into his arms as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant red and gold. He finally understood that true happiness wasn't about possessing the power to rule a world or having wealth greater than a nation. True happiness was simply living life exactly the way you wanted, with the food you wanted to eat, the wine you wanted to drink, and the person you loved holding your hand. Chapter 7. The Master of All Trades. The news of Julian and Serafina's engagement sent shockwaves through the city's elite. While the internet celebrated the union of the god of wealth and the music goddess, a few disgruntled remnants of the high society old guard weren't happy. Among them was Julian's younger brother, Pierce. Having watched Julian's wealth explode into tens of billions overnight, Pierce was consumed by jealousy. He convinced Elder Vance to host a massive family banquet, plotting to humiliate Julian by inviting the city's most renowned traditional scholars, aiming to expose Julian as a lucky but uncultured nouveau riche. When Julian and Serafina arrived at the Vance estate, the atmosphere was thick with tension. "Brother," Pierce sneered loudly, intentionally interrupting a conversation. "You've been busy making money, but a true Vance must possess refined tastes. I heard you've been playing chess. Mr. Zhang here is a national master. Why don't you show us what you've learned? Or are you afraid of embarrassing yourself?" Julian, looking sharp in a tailored charcoal suit, casually sipped his tea. "I don't mind a quick game." The board was set. Pierce smirked, expecting a swift defeat. But within 15 moves, Julian's playstyle completely shifted. It wasn't the defensive, balanced style he had used to politely humor Serafina's father. It was an aggressive, flawless onslaught. Julian's fingers moved with casual elegance, snapping the pieces down. "Checkmate," Julian said smoothly on the 24th move. Mr. Zhang stared at the board, his hands trembling. This is the Divine Dragon formation. You read the opponent's strategy 5 steps before I even conceived it. Master Vance, please allow me to bow to you." Pierce's face turned an ashen gray. "Luck. It was just luck. What about art? What about history?" Before Pierce could embarrass himself further, Serafina stepped forward, her eyes flashing with cold anger. Julian's private collection includes verified Tang Dynasty calligraphy and lost musical scores you couldn't even dream of comprehending. Pierce, don't measure a giant by a dwarf's yardstick. Elder Vance slammed his cane on the floor, glaring at Pierce. "Enough. Pierce, go to the ancestral hall and reflect on your arrogance. Julian, my boy, you have surpassed this old man's wildest expectations." As they drove home, Serafina giggled, leaning against Julian's shoulder. "You were amazing. Is there anything you can't do?" Julian pulled her closer, kissing her forehead. "I can't stop loving you. Everything else is just a hobby." Chapter 8. The Desperate Gamble. While Julian enjoyed his peaceful life, the remnants of his past were rotting. The Sterling Group was on the verge of bankruptcy. Desperate to save her family's legacy, Victoria decided to make one final, humiliating move. She leaked a heavily edited video of her crying, implying that Julian had abandoned her when she was vulnerable and used insider knowledge from their marriage to build his empire. The internet temporarily exploded with speculation. Trolls began to question Julian's rapid rise. Marcus called Julian, his voice booming with rage. "Boss, Victoria is trying to drag us down with her. She's holding a live-stream press conference right now at the Grand Imperial Hotel to expose the truth." Julian was currently feeding Richie a piece of premium A5 Wagyu beef. He didn't even look up. "Marcus, remember that hard drive I told you to secure from the Cross Group's abandoned servers 3 months ago?" "Yes, boss. The one with all their financial transactions and communication logs." "Release it. Stream it directly onto the big screens at her press conference. Let's give her a grand finale." At the Grand Imperial Hotel, Victoria stood before a sea of flashing cameras, looking pale and tragic. "Julian was the love of my life, but money changed him." She sobbed into the microphone. Suddenly, the massive LED screens behind her flickered. The video feed changed. Instead of Victoria's face, it showed the audited financial logs of the Sterling Group from the last 3 years, proving that Julian had never touched a single cent of corporate funds. Even worse, it showed text messages between Victoria and Dominic Cross from during her marriage, plotting to use the $100 million divorce settlement to completely cut Julian out and run him into the ground. The journalists gasped. The livestream comments turned into a vitriolic storm against Victoria. She cheated on him emotionally for 3 years. She gave him a contract marriage and then tried to play the victim. Julian is a saint for not ruining her sooner. Victoria stared at the screen, her breath hitching. Her phone buzzed frantically. It was her legal team informing her that the government was launching a full-scale investigation into her company for tax evasion and malicious defamation. She collapsed on the stage, realization hitting her like a physical blow. Julian hadn't just moved on. He had always been 10 steps ahead, entirely untouchable. Chapter 9. A Feast of Stars. With the trash thoroughly cleared out, it was time for celebration. Julian decided to throw a pre-wedding banquet at White Cloud Manor. He didn't invite the fake high society socialites. Instead, he invited the people who truly mattered: Serafina's family, Marcus, and the local artisans he supported. His 8 master chefs outdid themselves. The tables groaned under the weight of crispy, golden Peking duck, fragrant Cantonese steamed fish, and fiery Sichuan delicacies. The traditional brewer unveiled a barrel of 20-year-old rice wine that smelled like liquid autumn. Even Lucky the ragdoll and Richie the golden retriever were wearing matching tiny silk bow ties, sharing a custom-made, pet-friendly seafood platter in the courtyard. Serafina's father raised a glass of the exquisite rice wine, his stern face melting into a warm smile. "Julian, I watched you these past few months. You have the wealth to shake this city, yet you spend your time making sure my daughter smiles every single day. You are a true man." To Julian and Serafina, Marcus shouted, already tipsy, raising his glass. "The best boss in the world." Julian looked around the lively room. The warmth of the fire, the laughter of true friends, and the genuine respect of a family that loved him for him, not his money. He looked down at Serafina, who was looking up at him, her eyes reflecting the sparkling chandelier lights. He leaned down and whispered, "Are you ready for next week, Miss Thorne?" She blushed, her fingers interlocking with his. "I've been ready since the day we talked about Rachmaninoff." Chapter 10. The Ultimate Flat-Laying Romance. The wedding of Julian Vance and Serafina Thorne was held on a private, sun-drenched island in the South Pacific, away from the prying eyes of the media. Only a select group of close family and friends were flown in on Julian's private jet. The ceremony was a dream of white roses, ocean breezes, and the gentle melody of a cello playing softly in the background. Julian stood at the altar, looking incomparably handsome in a white linen tuxedo. When the archway doors opened, Serafina walked down the aisle. Her gown was minimalist yet ethereal, catching the golden rays of the setting sun. She looked like an angel that had stepped out of a classic painting. As she reached him, Julian took her hands. They were warm and steady. "Julian," Serafina said, her voice clear and beautiful over the sound of the crashing waves. "Before I met you, the world felt loud and chaotic. But with you, I learned that the most beautiful moments are the quiet ones. I promise to listen to music with you, bake cookies for you, and love you through every lazy, wonderful day of our lives." Julian smiled, a deep, profound happiness washing over him. "Serafina," Julian replied, slipping a flawless, custom-cut pink diamond ring onto her finger. "I used to think my life was just about surviving a script, but you became my reality. I promise to protect your peace, to remember every single thing that makes you happy, and to spend the rest of my billions and my life making sure you never regret choosing me." "You may kiss the bride," the officiant smiled. Julian pulled Serafina into his arms, dipping her slightly as he kissed her passionately under a sky that had erupted into shades of brilliant magenta and gold. The guests burst into cheers. Marcus wept loudly into a handkerchief, and Richie the golden retriever barked joyfully, chasing Lucky the cat down the sandy aisle. Epilogue. 1 year later. At the White Cloud Manor, the morning sun drifted through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Julian woke up early, but he didn't check the stock market, nor did he care that his net worth had just hit another historic high. He slipped out of bed, walked down to the massive kitchen, and prepared a tray of fresh gardenia tea and warm, buttery croissants. He walked back upstairs and placed the tray on the nightstand. Serafina stirred, opening her beautiful, deer-like eyes, a radiant smile immediately gracing her face the moment she saw him. "Good morning, husband," she murmured sleepily, pulling him down by his collar for a sweet morning kiss. "Good morning, wife," Julian smiled, sitting beside her. Down in the courtyard, Richie and Lucky were sunbathing peacefully side by side. The world outside was rushing, fighting, and scheming for power and fame. But inside this villa, there was only peace, luxury, and an eternal, unshakable love. Julian Vance had truly mastered the art of living.